and good morning to everyone joining today. I hope you're staying safe and well during these times. And welcome to our webinar, HS2 Reset and Deliver. A recorded version of this webinar will be available online under the UK Market Opportunities page, globalambition.ie. We will be sharing a link to that on the Enterprise Ireland UK LinkedIn page. Alternatively, feel free to drop me an email. My email will be available at the end of this presentation. There will be a Q&A at the end of today's presentation also, so do feel free to use the chat box facility to type in any questions you may have, and hopefully we will get time to answer them all. Thank you for listening this morning, and I will hand you over now to today's presenter, John Hunt. John is a senior advisor in our London office and an overseas global lead for construction at Enterprise Ireland. For those of you just joining us now, welcome, and I will hand you over to John now.
Thank you, Niamh, and thank you everyone for joining this morning's webcast. I hope you, your families are keeping well in what by any measure has been a testing and turbulent few months. So anyone who's been in construction for a while knows that the big decisions often get deferred in times of uncertainty. And today we have a panel of first-class speakers to outline the positive news which began in April with a notice to proceed on the 3 detailed design and main civils packages, followed by the subsequent green lights on Old Oak Common and Curzon Street stations. Together, these projects combine to unlock billions of pounds of further investment in new buildings and new communities. Now, a clear prelude to last week's sort of government announcement and their sort of build intent. So perhaps to kick things off, a little bit of introduction. And when people ask, what is it that Enterprise Ireland do? I've heard it best summed up as well, a government agency that looks to make businesses into the best businesses they can be. And there's no better measure than achieving success and growth in multiple international markets. And therein lies our mission really, which is to create successful international business and industries. And I think in that description lies some parallels in terms of what the HS2 project has set out to do. It's not just about delivering a new asset. It's very much about its legacy and its legacy in the construction industry, about how it drives us forward in terms of the skills agenda, the environmental performance, diversity, how we connect with our communities, and the digitalization of the sector. And I think like Heathrow Terminal 5 or the 2012 Olympics before it, this is a project that sets out to raise everyone's game and on a scale really that's beyond the experience of most. So absolutely, HS2 is a project to be involved with, a project which is looking to drive business and industry standards. And so to our speakers, we have 4 representatives from the project on the webinar today. We will hear from Howard Mitchell, the Head of Innovation at HS2. Representing the successful JV contractors given notice to proceed, we'll hear jointly from Simon Poulter, the Head of Procurement, and Anthony Bulik, the Supply Chain Manager from the Align JV. But first, and by any stretch, you know, a fantastic place to start. Really pleased to welcome Nikki Wright, the Regional Supply Chain Manager for HS2. And with her usual energy and positivity, Nikki will touch upon HS2's progress these past months and offer some increasing clarity on the emerging opportunities ahead. So Nikki, we're going to hand over to you if you're ready to go.
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone.
Fantastic.
Great introduction. Feel like I've got to live up to that expectation now. I'm sure the enthusiasm will be as normal as ever. So thanks for having us here. And I also massively appreciate kind of having Align involved in these discussions, which I think are more increasingly important as we kind of approach and proceed with delivery, with that it's not just HS2 on the stand, that we bring all of our kind of JVs with us as well. I'm not sure if we can go to the first slide. Or I'm in control of it. There we go. That's me, if you didn't know.
Yeah, looks like you.
Yeah, there we go. So I thought it was important to kind of give context to kind of what we do within our team. So I'm the supply chain manager at HS2, and I look after the stations category, but it doesn't mean that I don't know or I'm not interested in kind of all of the elements of HS2. So we work in a team of supply chain managers, analysts, but also apprentices who support and work across the full life cycle of the projects within HS2. So we work within pre-procurement, which means that we look at HS2's own key procurements to assess appetite, determine the overarching market's position as the HS2 strategies come to light. We're then involved throughout the procurement process for these HS2 procurements to assess how potential suppliers will support HS2 to deliver on the subcontracting strategies which are best in class. As John alluded to, we've been part of this journey since before the Olympics with the same strategy and mentality of supply chain management. So it's a growing kind of delivery that we've kind of really bettered as the years have gone on. We then work closely with our JVs as they deliver their own projects to get a wider view of HS2 and also beyond that, because HS2 sits within the UK of many projects that are coming up kind of globally, Europe, over the next 5-10 years. So we need to understand how we impact kind of the environment that we sit within to ensure that we mitigate risk. With the one term is ensure no surprises. So that's what we work to kind of try to deliver. So our supply chain is growing. We've got tier 2s and tier 3s contracts being placed kind of within the HS2 program. And I think it's great to be able to have a line to be able to shed more light on the kind of staggering work that's taking place across the UK already, which is often behind closed doors to this point. There we go. So I wanted to start this by saying that despite the circumstances that surround us, 2020 is a really big year for HS2 and our contractors. So we've achieved some really key milestones over the last few months, and we continue to work with our supply chain to progress, to mitigate risks as we continue to work through the challenges that the current circumstances are presenting. So there's 3 things on the slide here that you can see. We're preparing to start tunneling. At the peak of construction, there'll be 10 TBM, so tunnel boring machines, each a self-contained underground factory that works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's a huge amount of earthworks that are taking place as well, which will begin to create the straight, flat route that we need for the high-speed railway. And the third piece there is we've got the construction of some of our most iconic structures, something like the Colne Valley Viaduct, which is just inside the M25, and that begins as well in 2020. And this is a 3.4 kilometre viaduct, which is a key landmark structure, which is in a really unique kind of landscape setting. So a lot of the above that I've just discussed in 2020 actually sits with a line. So it's great that you can hear them speak about kind of what's coming up in their 2020 plans as well. But before we move just very quickly to the next slide, I think I'm going to touch on what John said is, we have had notice to proceed in April. That obviously came at a very difficult time in terms of COVID-19. But I think it's worth us kind of highlighting that this notice to proceed should give businesses and the supply chain confidence in the project, but also it should and it will be giving an immediate boost to the construction economy where it needs it most. As we are progressing with delivery. So I thought it was interesting to mention here, just because I get the statistics, I receive those every week. So there are currently 225 sites open of the 244 total sites, which reflects a kind of 93, 92, 93%. So this has obviously increased significantly over the last few weeks, with the remaining few sites that are paused or still not open are where it's very close proximity to the public, or it's something that needs to be kind of reviewed in more detail in terms of how to proceed safely, which is obviously our top priority. So, next slide, if I can. Sorry guys, just trying to click the next slide, the image is so small. There we go. So, you can see on the left-hand side of the slide, we have the design services, enabling works contracts, we have the utilities and the main works contracts which are awarded. However, we've got the stations element which sits there, which is obviously the area I know best. We've got the 2 stations in London which are currently awarded. They were awarded in 2019. So we have Euston Station, which is in central London, was awarded to Maestro Gardos, and also Old Oak Common, which is in West London, which was awarded 6 months later to a joint venture called BBVS, which is made of Balfour Beatty, Vinci and Sistra. So obviously on this, you've still got the rolling stock, which is still within the procurement phase, and it's actually under evaluation now still. And as soon as there's news on that, that will be issued to the market through a press release. But at the moment, that is currently set to be awarded in Q4 2020, so at the tail end of this year. Then we also have the remaining element, which is the railway systems, which requires a slide on its own. So I want to make sure that I kind of put that across to you in the most clear way that I can. So starting with the stations. So I thought it was good to talk more about the stations which are currently still being procured. So we have Interchange Station, which is on the right, and we have Curzon Street Station, which is on the left. Within the kind of iconic station, which is in the city centre, which is Curzon Street, the early works are taking place with our JV called LM, which is Langerook and Murphy's. And HS2 are also in the thick of our own procurement for the design and build of that station, which is the invitation to tender is set to launch imminently. And HS2 actually just released the information about the 3 construction firms which are in the running, which is BAM Ferrovial, Langerook and Maestro Gardos as a joint venture. So what's really exciting about this station is that we've actually received Schedule 17 planning consent, which has been provided by Birmingham City. And it's the first station to gain this approval, which happened at the end of April 2020. So we had a fairly active April 2020, which came at the right time. So they've been working with WSP and also Grimshaw on the design for this station. The other station, Interchange Station, in Solihull, which sits outside the city centre. You can see from the image it's far less within the city. And they've also been doing their major works and looking to kind of put the major structures in place on the site of this station, which covers 150 hectares to give the scale of kind of how big this site is. This is the first station that has, the first railway station globally to achieve BREEAM Outstanding certification, which is a really big success because it puts this in the top 1% of buildings in the UK for sustainable design, which is also really good for the railway sector and also our kind of supply chain in being able to deliver against these outstanding buildings and railway stations that are being designed and delivered. So we're also finalising the stations package strategy, and we're engaging with suppliers to align for this station as well, for Interchange. So the procurement for Interchange Station will follow about 6 months behind Curzon Street, and we're looking to proceed with PQQ on Interchange Station in Q4 of this year. And although it's not on this slide, I thought I would mention the automated people mover, which is known by the project director at HS2 as the kind of pinnacle project. Everyone's very excited about kind of HS2 providing an automated people mover. So this will link the NEC, which is a large conference centre, Birmingham International Railway Station, and also Birmingham Airport. This is going to be procured in 2 different lots. So we have the systems provision, which is the manufacture and all of the systems provision, but we also have the infrastructure and civils piece, which will proceed and commence with after the systems, having understood the market feedback, but that's what would be best to deliver. PQQ for the APM systems will also commence in Q4 of 2020. Now, the final category I'm going to outline to you in terms of HS2's procurements. Oh, let me just go back. These buttons are small. The railway systems procurement. So this consists of 16 different contracts, and I hope this slide actually brings you some clarity around those different contracts within that category, which is kind of very large and quite complicated to see the difference. So we've had contract notices have been issued to the market for the track systems package, which is split into 4 different lots. And last month, we also have been delivering PQQ hot starts virtually, which have been a really beneficial way for us to kind of engage with the market, but also not require businesses to utilize a significant amount of time in attending and being available in person. So I think this is a really good way to deliver these sessions, which we're going to be delivering more on. We've also got the control, command and signaling, so CCS, which has just also started its procurement journey. And actually only last week we started the competition for the operational telecoms piece, also then followed by OCS, which is the overhead catenary, and also the M&E, so the mechanical and electrical packages. All of these are available to see within the kind of HS2 e-sourcing portal. And I think there was a category-wide update that was provided to the market in March. So if anyone is interested in understanding a bit more about these timelines, I'm more than happy to provide that to Enterprise Ireland, and they can issue that out afterwards. So I also thought whilst we were here, it was worth me highlighting phase 2. So if you can see on this slide, we've got the blue section, which is phase 2A, but we've also got the orange section, which is sitting kind of very quietly on that slide as well, which is phase 2B. So it's important that we kind of highlight what we're looking at for this, because actually time is going quite quickly and we're going to be starting to look at procuring these in the near future. So within phase 2A, we've announced that we're using a different model for the longer looking at areas of the route. We'll be looking at sections such as viaducts, earthworks, tunnels, for example. So we're looking to launch the procurement of the design and delivery partner at the end of 2020, with the works packages looking to be procured from 2021. I thought it was also just worth looking at kind of a few of the elements of phase 2B, seeing the cities that kind of connects with as the kind of pinnacle of how, you know, where this connects to. There's also today, I think actually currently, that we're doing an industry day on GI, so the ground investigation for phase 2B. Obviously you are sitting in this webinar, so you're not going to be attending that webinar. However, if you are interested in understanding more about that, you can email us. I'll show you the email later, and you're more than welcome to kind of get some more information about that so that you can look into understanding that more. I thought it was worth bringing this slide in. I've just been talking about HS2's procurement, but obviously the question that we're often asked is, well, how do we get involved and what do we need to do? So I want to just highlight these few things. So it's really important that I think organizations understand the vision, the values and the goals. It's not a tick box exercise. There's also the element of registering with the right online portals, whether that be Contracts Finder, Compete For. We have a LinkedIn portal that has a plethora of information about how you can also get involved. That's very important. It's also worth allocating some responsibility through those opportunities to make sure they're kind of up to date. There's also the thing about considering partners with other suppliers, and also don't be put off if you can't deliver part of the scope. I think that's really important. There's a wide opportunity here to get involved in kind of a number of elements, so that's kind of important as well. So I think the rest of the elements on that slide are there for your kind of perusal, but I think I wanted to just end on, if I can click again.
Apologies, guys.
There we go. So what can you do? So there's a number of events coming up. We're looking to host a Meet the Contractor event at the end of this year. You will be given the information by John or by Enterprise Ireland. I will make sure that he has that. Compete For is very key in a tool. We've also got making sure that you work with kind of businesses. We've got Enterprise Ireland. We're going to be in touch with you in due course in terms of how you can get more engaged. And there's also a lot of resources that you can use to understand HS2's values, such as the supply chain tool that's available for everyone to use. So the last slide I have here before I hand back over to John. Oh, not that one. Apologies, guys. Is this one. Here we go. So this is how to get engaged with us. You don't need to be scribbling on notes. don't be frantically writing down websites. This will be shared. But I think there's a lot of ways that you can get involved, more than just through the website, specific surveys, supply chain news that you can get in touch with. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope that gives you an update, not just on HS2's own procurements, but kind of the update in terms of where we are this month. So I massively appreciate having us here with you today, and any questions, more than happy to take later. Thank you. Back to John.
Thank you, Nikki, and some really positive news relayed in a really positive and energetic way. So no finer way to begin, and thank you very much, Nikki. I guess it's very clear the level of the progress that has been made, and 92% of sites now open. So a lot has been done, and I think absolutely 2020, 2021 is very much going to be the start of an incredible journey for the many, and I'm sure a journey that will accompany us through a large part of our careers. And when I speak with the Enterprise Ireland clients that are already involved in HS2, even Ireland's largest sort of international civil engineering contractors, and I was speaking with David at Robridge last week, a company that have delivered significant projects on both sides of the equator. And in our conversations, that the sheer scale of the project really becomes apparent, and there's a genuine jaw-dropping amazement at the scale of the opportunities and the size of the task ahead. And I think it's the scale that's really driving a genuine collaboration and an approach to finding the best way to get things done. And talking with David, I get a sense that the working relationships, the friendships that are being developed, that are being forged for the long term, which is, again, a really exciting thing. So to our second presentation, and you can see clearly from the slide, which is perfectly timed, we have a joint presentation from Simon Poulter and Anthony Bulik from the Align JV team. Very much defined as the tunnel and viaduct package. And I know the NTP provided a great resurgence of energy and excitement amongst the design and contracting teams. And to find out more, Simon, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks, John. Hi, everybody. Simon Poulter. I'm Head of Procurement and Supply Chain for the Align joint venture, and ably assisted by Anthony Bulik, who's Senior Supply Chain Manager, works within my team. It's good, John, to hear about Robridge and the positive feedback, because Robridge are one of Align's key subcontractors delivering the bulk earthworks. So that's excellent news and good feedback. Oh. Okay, so that's the delay. Okay, before we start specifically with Align, I thought it was worthwhile just taking you through who's doing what in terms of mainwork civils contractors. Obviously, you can see Align there in the middle in the central section, but N1, N2, North 1 and North 2, that's being carried out by Balfour Beatty Vinci. The central section with Align, we've got EKFB, Eiffage, Kier, Frovial and BAM. They're carrying out sections C2 and 3. And then we've got Skanska, Costain and Strabag carrying out sections S1 and S2. And what does that look like? So I'm not sure how well you can see that slide, because I can't see it very well, but hey, we'll try. Where our scope is where it's circled there. Anthony will go into more details of what actually Align looks like, but in essence, we are a 16-kilometre twin bore tunnel and a 3.5-kilometre viaduct around the Coal Valley area. You've got the south section there, which is sort of kicks off around Euston, moves up into Old Oak Common and meets us at sort of Rickmansworth area. We carry on through the tunnel. We end up sort of Missedon up to there, where sections C2 and C3 take over up to there, the orange section there, and Balfour Beatty Vinci just closed that route there. And then obviously, hopefully, and definitely, we go into a T2, a 2A environment, which is Birmingham to Crewe. I think, Anthony, have you got?
Yeah.
You've got, yeah. So I'll hand over to Anthony now, and he'll take you through the Align piece.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Thank you, John. So, good morning, everybody. Let me just go to the next slide if I can. Not easy. Apologize. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, just to go a bit more in detail of Align. So Align, as did say by Simon, is one of the main work contractor for the HS2 section. Align is composed of 3 main work contractors that are Bouygues TP, Volker Fitzpatrick, and Sir Robert McAlpine. So we are delivering these 22 kilometers that is composed by there is two main part of the Align. That there is a tunneling activities that I will detail a bit more later on the viaduct activities. So this project is a 5-year project for us with an approximately contract value of 1.9 billion. So if now if I go into more detail of one of the key part of this project is what we are calling the source portal. That's kind of the heart of the project, is where everything will happen. Means that this area that is inside the M25 is where all the staff will be based. All workers as well. We work the morning and we leave the afternoon or during the night, because it's a 24 hours, 7 days a week project. We are currently on this project around 200 staff. We will increase quite significantly to around 500 staff with around 2,000 workers working on this location. So this location is quite a big place, obviously, as you can see on the map there. We are starting from this area for the TBM for the 2 tunnel, but it's as well where the viaduct will land. In parallel, in this location is where you can see 2 main factories that will be the precast factory, as we are self-delivering the precast element for the tunnel, the segment tunnel on the viaduct. So it means that in this area will be these 2 factories, the start of the TBM on the end of the viaduct. You can see at the bottom some nice picture. Despite of this lockdown, we have been very lucky with the weather. Means that the project had very good progress in the past few months. So we have been very lucky with that. So now I will drive you a bit more in detail of what is finally the tunnel. Yeah, the tunnel on the viaduct. So the tunnel is it's 2 tunnels finally. So 16 kilometers tunnel. If I'm correct, is a kind of one of the longest tunnels that will happen in Europe at this time. We have for that 2 TBM coming from the German supplier that is Ehrengnest. At the time we are talking, so one of the first TBM is quite ready to be delivered. That's something very positive for us. And on this finally tunneling section, we have as well 5 ventilation shafts along the 16 kilometers. You can see at the bottom, at the top right, one picture of the current site. So you can already see the entrance of the tunnels that are appearing. So that's very positive for us. So the site is clearly at the time when we are talking, it's very exciting to be there because we can see the dynamic of the project that is now opening since we did receive the notice to proceed. At the bottom is the viaduct. So the viaduct as well will be, I'm sure, one of the most iconic infrastructure element in the UK when this one will be completed. It's a 3.37 kilometer viaduct with, as you can see, 308 piles on 58 pillars. So that gives you more of an overview of what as a line we will be happy and proud to build for the UK. Now I will go a bit more in detail of the procurement on specifically the supply chain opportunities. For you to know, we are on this project already for a couple of months and even years. because we were there before the notice to proceed in order just to prepare this project. There is already more than 250 contracts that has been placed up to date. I can give you some examples, such as obviously the tunneling boring machine, but as well the treatment plant. But we can talk about labor supply for the temporary labor or the concrete, for example. But what is very important to highlight to you right now is there is many opportunities that will come. We have at the moment already identified 132 major packages that will have to be procured over the project duration, but that is just one kind of the visible part of what will be the procurement. We have, for example, in the next 3 months, 25 of these major packages that will be issued for tenders. It could be either subcontract packages, supply of materials, or supply of equipment. You will see on the right some of these packages that we will tender and we will have to award for this Align project. It could be either some civils project, civils packages or tunneling packages, or as well some project-wide package that will work for finally all the different sections of this project. Something that we want to highlight as well is Align is not just finally one main work contractor, is as well the supply chain that we are using for Align. And I would like to highlight specifically the tier 1 contractor. We have some massive, obviously, contract due to the size of the project. And I will take one name, that is KVJV, that is delivering for us the piling activity. So obviously opportunities could arise thanks to as well our key main contractor. Now, if I give you a bit more of an overview of all that could happen on obviously, I think that's something you will be very interested in. Align, as did say, so before, so we are using Compete4 as the place where we are posting all opportunities. Means that I would invite you and encourage you just to register yourself to Compete4 first. But you have to know as well that Compete4 is the place where you would see these opportunities, but we have as well some minimum requirement. For that, ConstruxOnline and Achilles are the assessment bodies that Align is recognizing for the C1 section. And we would like as well to encourage you just to look at what they're proposing, as we will use ConstruxOnline or Achilles for the due diligence of the supplier and subcontractors that will be working on the Align section. For that, we are currently setting up an e-tendering platform that will be for Align the place where all supply chain management will happen, from obviously the tender management to as well the award of the packages. So that's something that will be available very soon, where finally each company that will be participating to a tender will be visible for us to do the due diligence. I want to insist obviously on the fact that Align will promote the local SMEs and businesses through the tender stage, and I will detail a bit more the reason why a bit later. And again, something important to highlight is I did talk about the tier 1 contractors such as KVJV. So it's quite critical for us and very, very important to be able to map with this contractor who are their tier 1 or tier 2 that will be for Align the tier 2 and tier 3 contractor. So we are working with them to do the supply chain mapping that will be a way for us to identify where this opportunity will be clearly the most relevant for SMEs. In parallel, on the right side of the slide, you will see some values. These values are the Align values, safety first, obviously. That's what we have to do. We just want to ensure that people are working safely on the Align section. But I will insist as well on the collaboration on excellence, that for us as Align, we just want to ensure that the supply chain that is working with us will as well work under the same value. And for that, we are putting in place a 360 performance review, means that Align will obviously assess the performance of each company working under the C1 section. But we are as well want as well to ensure that this company will be able to assess Align to make sure that we are all working in a collaborative spirit. So that's very key for us, as that's not just Alliance that will deliver this project. It will be all together that we will deliver this fantastic C1 section. And before letting Simon give you an update of a COVID-19 survey that we did with Construction Line, I just want to insist on why SMEs are essential for Align. But first of all, you will provide a pool of capable resources that clearly will be essential for us just to deliver this project. But you have as well the capacity to cover geographically, either locally or nationally, the area where we as main work contractor are not specifically based. Access to innovation is very key for us because you are the one that will obviously provide this innovation in the way as well that you are carrying the market and technical expertise. But what for us as well will probably make big differences will be your ability to move and to react. You know, that as a big organization, we are not the most agile, but we are quite obviously keen to be able to see how we can all together move in a very dynamic way on this project. But in addition to that, it's for us as well a contractual obligation. As with HS2, we want to ensure that SMEs will be part of this fantastic project. So now I will let you, Simon, detail the COVID-19.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Let me try to put the slide.
Yeah, you managed that a bit for us. I struggled.
I'm struggling as well.
Right. So yeah, hello again. We were asked to touch on COVID-19 and the significance and impact that it's had with tier ones and the supply chain. So, you know, I think it's fair to say that many of our businesses that went into COVID won't be the same sort of business coming out of COVID for a number of reasons. We try and work quite hard with our supply chain at Align just to understand the pressures that the businesses may be under, and any support that we can give. What we also did here, hopefully you can see this, we worked with Construction Line on a question set that maybe many of you contributed to, but there's a couple of slides here that we just wanted to go through. So certainly the first one here is, you know, has your organisation been affected? You know, obviously, you know, we had quite a resounding yes, of course. I mean, it's probably a fairly obvious question, really. Of course, it's been affected. We've all been affected. The other slides across there is, you know, the most affected were medium-sized businesses. So, you know, the smaller businesses were potentially a little bit more agile, or you know, less exposure. But the medium-sized businesses are feeling the pinch a little. And then we asked questions around, you know, from buyers, you know, as we are, what should we be doing to help organisations? And I think based, you know, the questions or the responses that came back to the questions, really not surprising, and probably not even COVID. You know, payment of invoices. Imagine everyone on this webinar would be nodding their head and saying, you know, we need to pay you guys on time. And then relaxing project deadlines. You know, that is more difficult. And we need the full chain to buy into that. You know, the clients need to buy into that, as well as tier ones, as well as the supply chain. Agreement to shorter payment terms. Yeah, absolutely. We've done that. There's a procurement policy note set by the government that encourages the likes of HS2 to relax payment terms, and we have seen evidence of them doing that. So that's good to see. Obviously, public sector projects are the lifeline currently, I believe, of construction, and HS2 is the biggest. So, you know, it's good to see that the clients are buying into that. And then the bottom one that there is just, you know, what assistance has been provided. So, you know, buyers have reduced project deadlines, which is excellent. We have ensured that invoices are paid on time and early in some instances, and you know, less so that buyers have been agreed to shorter payment terms. That's probably, I don't know if you feel you want to add anything to that, Anthony, but
I think you did say the essential on what we want to highlight. Part of that is as a line, we want to ensure that we want to be sure that you understand the fact that we are totally onboarded into that. So for us, we have been all finally individually affected by this COVID situation, but the project has to happen. That's clearly something that will happen. But for that, we need to understand what has to be done to ensure that this project will happen in the smoothest way. That means that we will be all proud of what we have delivered. So we understand that obviously for that couple of support on things that will have to be set up in the future to provide the right assistance. So that's where we are working part of the line on with as well HS2 to see all that will be done. Construction line is assisting us for that. Again, I will encourage you to be closer from construction line or Achilles, because there will be some key partner for us in this organization to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and just so absolutely, and just before we close, you know, Anthony did touch on this. We can't deliver this without our supply chain. We cannot deliver this. We need you, and we need to help you and support you where we can. Thank you. Over to you, John.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you, Simon. Thank you, Anthony. I think a real glimpse there into the scale of the participation and what's going to be required, you know, to get across the line, but also the importance of SMEs and, you know, how, you know, we work together collaboratively to deal with the disruption on the scale of the pandemic. So again, really strong presentation. Thank you, gents. But it's not just a project of scale. It's really a project of scale and complexity, and I think that's really been driving the innovation agenda. We've seen, you know, digital technology adoption, the prioritization of off-site manufacturing, and you know, some real steps forward in other areas around process as well. And already, you know, we're seeing the engagement and connection with Irish technology providers and companies like Zootech and Flowforma, and particularly around this kind of off-site precast manufactured solutions that really thrive in this sort of can-do environment. So Howard, you're our final speaker before the Q&A, and if you're good, if you're ready to go, I might hand over to you now.
Thank you, John. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, great. Well, thanks for the opportunity to come and speak regarding this topic. It's been absolutely fascinating also from my side. I am speaking at a slightly higher level than the other people on the call, in that I look after innovation on a program-wide approach for HS2. And on a program of this scale, you can imagine that is a very, very broad area. So as an organization, we look at TRL levels from very early stage post-academic research all the way through to basically commercial scaling. We need to be putting new and innovative techniques onto the sites that were mentioned earlier in the call that are actually being stood up now. But we also need to be investigating new ways of working for the phase 2B and the railway systems that will be needed in many years from now. So the scope of innovation within HS2 is certainly bigger than any project or area that I've ever worked on, but also the most exciting. And why it's the most exciting is you have the greatest opportunity to take an idea through to delivery within the confines of a single program. Within a vast majority of innovation, quite often you're looking at 2-year cycles in terms of getting a new product or service to market in order to scale. We have a much greater opportunity within the HS2 program to take some of these ideas through a robust trial and delivery program, and then still in years to come still have an opportunity then to put those into the program, and more importantly also to hand those off into new mega projects as they start to come into place. So very simply, our strategy sits in 3 areas. As you can imagine, the fact that HS2 is quite broadly associated with a railway, a lot of people approach us with rail-based innovation, but first and foremost, my interest in terms of innovation is around the construction and civil engineering environments, and probably not always directly rail specific. We have a huge task ahead of us in terms of getting the phase 1 organization up and running and delivering to time, cost and quality. The second area that we look at within the department is around class-leading customer experience, and that is also quite often misconstrued in that the railway journey itself is not just the customer experience. The customer experience we look at is from the point of ticket purchase through to the arrival at your destination, and so we want to have a greater understanding of how people are interacting with the infrastructure we're building, the robustness of that infrastructure, making sure that the trains are running at Swiss levels of precision and accuracy. Also the experience as you go through the station, to make sure that you have a good both retail and commuting experience. Obviously, there are a number of things that in 10 or 15 years from now, the customers of the future will be accessing the station and accessing travel in very different ways. And if the last sort of 4 or 5 months are anything to show by, that change can happen actually very significantly. The final area that we do a lot of innovation and I think is the most important part, and it's not a requirement of the program, it's an obligation, and that is we are a significant investment in the UK and the infrastructure of the UK. And so therefore, what we leave behind, the footprints we leave behind outside of the railway infrastructure are incredibly important, and they may be the ongoing contributions to academic research or changes to health and safety as a standard for the UK site, and it also includes businesses and new ventures available that will go on and not only develop the reputation of rail in the UK and just around our allies, but also when we start to export that. At present, people still go to China and Japan as the experts in this construction of this rail. Once we have completed this program, we need to be positioning ourselves to not only have the best infrastructure knowledge, but also the economy and businesses that support it, and that we can export that. So, as with anything of this huge scale, the areas that we focus on are very, very carefully selected. And I think they've already been alluded to by my colleagues at Align, which is fantastic that we're on the same page there. But we have some really clear areas that we need to have a laser focus on in order to deliver the ambitions that I mentioned in the previous slide. The first area around productivity. So within the construction environment, there are many, many areas for new techniques or technologies to improve the way we work, get a greater degree of assurance in the work that is done, and to make sure that that time, cost and quality is paramount. And that could be any number of digital integration of Internet of Things, or the use of artificial intelligence, for example, for planning or risk management. The second area will come as no shock to any of you on the call. Where can we do more with less? Cognizant that the environment is a huge natural resource for all of us, and something that we need to create fewer emissions and noise, not only in the operation of the railway, but also in the build, in that we need to be the best possible neighbour that we can. And also carbon is at the forefront of our agenda, bearing in mind we have a lot of plant, a lot of carbon intensive activity, a lot of concrete, where we can actually be using best in class technologies in order to minimize the impact there. The next area, customer experience, as I've mentioned before, is around a reliable and robust experience for the users of our railway. We are not the eventual operator of the railway. We will be using the West Coast partner, who will actually be the train operator. So we need to work with them in hand in glove. But we also are the infrastructure support to ensure that that railway is the best possible experience. And as somebody on my team says, all of the milestones we have in between now and the journey, the first journey on the railway, are self-imposed. Our measurement of success will be when the YouTuber makes the first HS2 journey and gives us a thumbs up that it's a great experience for them and it's something that they enjoy and endorse. And then the final one, which all of my team hate because it's really not as exciting as the others, but in fact is the biggest lever for our program for innovation, is process. And I think that was just alluded to by one of the other speakers very briefly. We, as a central and relatively thin client organization, transfer huge amounts of data, huge amounts of day-to-day planning information and money throughout the supply chain. The process and the way that we go about doing that is a very, very important part of our success. And there are great innovations coming through almost on a daily basis to make sure that we're better and faster at doing that. So when we are looking at innovations, it's always useful for those of you who are thinking or coming up with these great ideas for you to understand what my marking criteria is for successful innovation within our program. And we deliver all of these things via companies such as Align, who presented earlier, but any of the Mainwork Civils partners. We also work with the MTC in Coventry, the Connected Places Catapult and the Digital Catapult, and also the UCRIN or UCRIC universities. So if anyone has a great idea, we want to hear from you, and we can also build a collaborative framework in which we can start to assess this idea and put it into place. The assessment criteria really, firstly, around return on investment, and we're very, very clear about this, that innovation is not just a pot of money for to be used for pure research purposes. It has to have a financial pathway to return, and that can come either by being more efficient during the build, or actually the ongoing operations if it's more asset based. Those legacy measures that I mentioned are very simple. They're around the enhanced sector performance, where we've developed new businesses and industry, where we've changed the benchmark for health and safety via our Safe at Heart program, or changed the way that we do something, or actually changed it as standard on our sites for environmental performance. And then, of course, where we are driving that knowledge economy surrounding academic excellence. So we work heavily with both UCRIN and UCRIC, Cambridge University, Birmingham University, and any number of others in order to drive that area of academic excellence. And then onto my final slide, which is really about the importance of SMEs. SMEs are a great source of innovation, and of my 101 live innovation project, close to 60% of those projects are being mostly delivered by SME organizations in collaboration with tier 1 or tier 2 organizations. That's because the SME teams have a greater degree of flexibility, and in order to be competitive in their marketplaces, they need to be innovative. They have to bring something new or better to the table in order to get the attention of the market. So those areas are very fertile innovators. There's some great stuff coming through the pipeline, and in order to support those better, we've recently just launched our Innovation Accelerator program. And that program is something that is really designed to bridge the gap between us as the client and the tier ones. What can happen is if smaller organizations have great ideas and they get taken under the wing of one of our main work civils or even a large tier one organization, is that they get a little bit lost and we don't see the scope for the use of that SME organization across our entire program. So this program is basically designed to bypass that, so that we will launch a number of challenges as HS2, as the client, and get direct interaction with the idea holders and then bring them in under our wing. We have a number of cohorts planned, but the one that is currently live at the moment has 3 challenges. One around the use of digital platforms for a circular economy across our program. One around the development of our green corridor programs, so making sure that the biodiversity and carbon footprint of the program is second to none. And then the final one was around the use of digital technology for productivity measurement and enhancement. The companies that are successful within that accelerator program will be part of a cohort that we support. We get coaching and mentoring from across our entire supply chain and our organization, so you get access to money can't have really services and engineers. We will expose you to not only venture capital investment, government bodies, and also all of our supply chain, but we'll coach you on that investment readiness and your capability. And then finally, we really have a very good package of partners there that will hopefully support you, whether that is with something like credits, cloud credits for digital development for free for the period of time you're with the accelerator, or whether and certainly all of the people in that space will get free business premises in Birmingham, supported by us. And we also have a number of other tailored programs for the people we would like to be involved. So I've probably overshot my time a little bit, so I will now hand over to Nikki.
Most probably back to John.
Sorry, back to John.
No, happy for an interlude.
I thought we were going to have a bit of innovation on the foot there. That was Howard. Absolutely clear. The innovations that will be made on HS2 will be a key piece of this project's legacy, and really interesting to see how just structuring that formal engagement of innovation rather than everyone putting up their hand and saying, I've got a good idea. And I can see with the scale of the program and the scale of the engagement how you set that up and how clear that will be. So stay with us. We're about to transition to our Q&A section of the webcast. So Simon and Anthony, if you'd like to join us as well, we'll see if the platform will hold all 5 cameras running simultaneously. Sure it will. There we go. Fantastic. So we've got a couple. I think we've certainly got time for a couple of questions, and got one in here that we'll come back to as well. But just from listening for an hour, this is truly an international project. We look at the mix of the company involved in its delivery, and I suppose that's probably true of all mega projects with such a large impact. And for 5 or 6 years now, HS2 has been preparing the supply chain for this delivery at scale. And I suppose as we work through the project, and this is the question, that there still will be capacity constraints, I suppose. And do we know where they're envisaged or how? And I think how are the capacity constraints being envisaged? You know, where we'll need to pull people in during the course of the programme. And I suppose two different views at that, really, one an HS2 view and one a contractor view. Anybody like to have a go at answering that in terms of that capacity constraints and how they're envisaged?
I can.
Thank you, Simon.
Okay, so I mean, it's clear that there will be capacity constraints. The project is a huge project. We work within a collaborative procurement hub, which with the other three main work civils contractors, and the primary focus of that hub is capacity risk, and looking at where the hotspots might be. So we've looked at a number of packages at the moment. Anthony leads that for us, so I'll bring him in a minute. But we certainly put a big focus on labour. We put a big focus on piling foundations. We also looked at reinforcement and various others. But we meet every week. So we have a call every week. It's every Friday. Then there's various work streams which Anthony leads a couple of those, and we look at where the impact might be, and actually, not, you know, it's actually about talking. It's about not overloading the supply chain, because that doesn't help anybody, and it's also, more importantly, it's not first past the post procurement either. So we're working together. We understand each other's programs, so we're not all trying to sort of get one over on the other main work civils contractors and sort of ring fence all our supply chain. So it's an important piece of work. And Anthony, I don't know if you want to add to that. I think you may be muted.
Excuse me. Yes, thank you, Simon. So what I would like to add to that is obviously capacity management is something key. And we can understand that specifically during this period as well, with the COVID-19 situation, some opportunity has been missed, and probably that each company and SMEs will try to catch up in terms of a program just to finally achieve target by end of the year with turnover, activity, margin, and everything. But that's quite a very tricky situation, because obviously it's quite important to be, I would say, realistic. On HS2 is a massive project, and for us, what we want to encourage people to do is to be transparent. We are not there to prevent people to get a project or to get a package, because obviously we would be very crazy finally not to work with the right company if we can. But at the end, what we want is to avoid finally for you to be in a very complicated situation. It could be because of cash flow. It could be because of the fact that geographically as well, the project is quite long, so we need to manage people. So all this kind of parameter are the kind of parameter we want to monitor at the hub level, because these companies that are the one we want all to work with, we just need to ensure that at the end of the project, everybody will be happy. When we look backward, we have delivered a project safely and the company is still there. So for us, capacity management is key, and we have to work in a transparent way to ensure that we are working on the project, on the company still secure by working on HS2.
And I think a very important piece of that is the piece where HS2 can come into play to support the wider remit of our tier ones to understand that capacity. So we have links with, you know, trade associations across Europe and the UK and wider to understand what their constraints could potentially be as well. So within the delivery phase as HS2, we do a lot of work to understand all of our JVs' key contracts. So what do they think is key, large enough, could impact program, is something that they're really worried or concerned about, and how can then HS2 look as the overarching umbrella to see what that looks like over the lifetime of the project. So that all happens in the background within delivery phase, which then supports within the collaboration hub. It's not done often. It's something that I think we're trying to kind of implement as standard, but it is a big task for a project, like you said, as large as HS2. So I think that's it from an HS2 perspective. We are definitely aware of that capacity constraint. We are working to do market analysis and to understand the facts rather than the hearsay that is often associated with issues of capacity. And we need to be very clear that we deal with facts in this space as well. Yeah.
It's also important, Nikki, to mention that HS2 are part of that collaboration hub.
Absolutely, yeah.
Excellent. And just by virtue, you're meeting on such a regular weekly basis. You know, it's as you say, it's live, and it's capacity risk that's being managed on a high priority. So thank you very much. That we have a question on the feed, which asks about the listing of tender packages on OJEU or HS2. There was a couple of references to Compete For, which is obviously one of the main tender sources for advertising, and that works from HS2 and the JV contractors as well. Nikki, do you just want to sort of quickly recap on how Compete For sort of works and maybe
absolutely,
how it's working and maybe working for you guys as well, Anthony, Simon?
Yeah, so I think, so I don't want to, give chapter and verse on its context, but it came into light for the Olympics. So it's something that's kind of been tried and tested on some fairly large projects previously. It is not working against existing procurement processes. This is a brokerage tool, which means that all of our contractors who have their own methods of procuring can look further into the market. So by HS2 stating that organizations can find opportunities in this advertised website, it means that these companies, potentially SMEs and organizations who are trying to get into the rail sector, are aware of and know the tool that we're going to use. So it's to engage, develop the supply chain, and it has kind of, I guess for me, there's features from a supplier basis in terms of we can understand the types of organizations that are going to be using it. We can understand why there are potential issues with new suppliers. If there's any kind of gap that we're finding, we can go and talk to the market, business engagement. So the statistics we get back from it are really important from my perspective, in terms of understanding who's accessing it, what opportunities go up there. But for me, I can go to an event and say to a number of organizations, go to Compete For, opportunities will be there. And then the tier ones are also in the position to then utilize that. So it's not a false promise, it's utilized by all, it's mandated in the contracts that they use it for kind of the critical packages. And I think it's, in my perspective, a great brokerage tool that doesn't sit against anything existing, but that's kind of how it works. So you can register on there to do so. You can look at specific and relevant opportunities, and then if you're successful in that shortlist, you would then proceed to the tender process in their own procurement portal. So it offers a kind of pre-qualification before you go there, from my perspective.
Thank you.
Okay, just well, from our perspective, then I think it's much better than it was on the Olympics and certainly Crossrail. I think we were a little guilty of lip service to Compete For. We're not now. Everything goes on Compete For. We take it very seriously, and I can speak for the other mainwork civils contractors too. From an aligned perspective, Compete For will really come into play now, because we were first out the blocks in terms of procurement, but we procured some really big stuff. So we weren't necessarily in the SME market, and I think that Compete For really does sit quite nicely in that SME space. So now we're moving into more of the quantity rather than the value. This Compete For will really come into play.
Excellent, thank you. Unashamedly, this is a question from me. And Howard, maybe you might be best placed to take this one on first, but by all means, please chip in, our other speakers. This is a question around innovation, and it's what area of innovation do you think will have the most impact on the wider industry? Anything you're working on at the moment? It's really kind of
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Where we're starting to see the biggest impact, certainly in the, I would say in the shorter to mid-term, is the integration of digital technologies in the construction environment. At the moment, we do have digital technologies, but we don't necessarily have systems that speak to one another. Where you start to have an integrated platform approach, where you may be monitoring carbon, but then also you have your gate control systems, you have IoT on where your plant are moving. You start to get a much richer picture of what is actually happening on your site, and you can go to levels of productivity more akin to a factory environment than a traditional construction environment. So sure. Optimization via data, certainly in the shorter to mid-term, is having a huge impact in the way we operate. We're also doing a fair amount in terms of understanding how best to monitor sites using new visual analytic or drone sort of based technologies, which were really not available sort of 10 or 15 years ago, allowing not only better monitoring of productivity, but also better management of risk. There's a lot of risk-based analytics that come from both financial and FMCG, which we're stepping away from some of the traditional Monte Carlo analysis of risk, which was traditionally pretty good, but actually now we're using the technology better. So digital is really driving things.
Fantastic. Really inspiring how that whole data is driving that design for manufacture and this assembly approach, and as you say, bringing in learnings from other sectors who have done that analytics piece around risk, impact to a deeper level, and use tools to do that. So no, absolutely fantastic. We I don't know if anyone else would like to talk about innovation on the site, or whether no, we are getting very close. I think we've perhaps run over a little bit as well. So thank you to everyone for listening to us. Maybe just as a final wrap up, and look, this morning has been, you know, a message of positivity in a bit of an oasis in a bit of a desert of not so good news in recent times. So thank you all ever so much for sharing that with us, and really helping deliver this really positive piece for the construction industry and wider society. Perhaps we could end on a final message. So perhaps maybe we'll run this through in speaker order. So Nikki, that means you first, I'm